Hello and welcome to a new demo. Today I would like to show you some tricks on our new rule engine, how you can avoid a couple of issues that arise when working with fill level sensors or distance sensors, especially in situations where you want to monitor fill levels or rivers, flowing waters, things like that. For this demonstration, we are going to use a distance sensor here in England. And this is measuring a flowing river. As you can see here in this picture, this is showing the actual installation, and a LoRaWAN sensor is measuring the water level. And if there's like a water level above a threshold, we want to send an alert. That's pretty easy. You go into the rule engine, add a new rule, select the product of that sensor, and then every time there's a new measurement, please compare this measurement to distance to the current value if that is greater than constant number value of, let's say, 500 millimeters. Add condition, configure a new action, send an email, next, send this to Simon, and then there you go. So this brings a couple of problems with it. So the first thing is that we are just checking the measurement every time there's a new one. But it could be that there's like a boat on the river, an animal below it, like leaves or trees, or an insect could get into the actual sensing element and then producing false alerts. There's no ways how you can use this rule engine to solve these issues. The first solution is to compare historical values of the sensors and not use a constant number value. This is pretty easy. Instead of using the current operation and time range, we are using the minimum operation in here, which lets us define a time. And let's say the sensor sends a new value every 5 minutes. We want the last 3 elements, which is then 15 minutes ago up until now. And if this is greater than 500 millimeters, we can leave it like it is. This means now that if you have 3 sensor values and one of them is a false alert hit or triggered by a boat or an animal or something that gets into the sensor element, then this is filtered out because we can assume that the next transmission everything is just fine again. We can even longer this here to like 60 minutes, and this means that the level needs to be at least 60 minutes above the threshold to get triggered. This is the most easiest way to do, but there's also more we can do, and this is solution number 2. We can add a new condition in here, and then we can select the distance field again, and we in this time leave it to current. The time range operation, we don't want historical measurement values. What we can do here is we can compare this to a range, and we want to make sure that this is inside a range of 100 to 1000, for example. And this means you can set this range to the actual flowing or the height or the level of the river through time, so the usual level. And this means that it only triggers the rule if it is inside of this range, which is like the usual range of the river. And then this action will only be triggered if those 2 conditions met at the same time. And you now have 2 options. One is compare historical values and then also a range. Let's save this rule. We need to give it a name. And let's add another one. And now we could also select the same product and device and then select the measurement field distance, time range operation to current. And in here we compare it again to a range, but this time if it is outside the range. And now we put in 100 to 1000, add condition, and then we execute an action which sends an email again. And in here we can now create an email that sends out an alert if something is wrong with the sensor, like it produces a value which shouldn't be measured because it's outside of the range. Then you can send an email alert like, hey, there's something wrong with your sensor, something is inside of the sensor. And you can even use our templating language here to select the fill level, the distance value, and then you can say like, check the sensor, this is the current distance, probably there is something wrong with the sensor. This is how easy you can basically create these rules to check if the sensor is okay or not. Let's call it sensor check. And then the water level in here notification with these two chained conditions here. Make sure that you only trigger on events which are important and don't trigger false alerts. And this filters out the false alerts. And then also the range makes sure that you only get notifications which are inside of that range. And even if there's a boat then going across, the first condition makes sure it gets filtered out. Now, if you have multiple water level sensors, you can see that this is a product, and you can add these multiple water level sensors to the same product, which means that this rule is executed for all devices in that product. If you, however, ask yourself how you can still tweak or define these threshold levels individual for each sensor, the answer is you can compare this to a measurement field or a configuration field of the triggering device, which is the triggering device is the one that sends, and then the rule gets evaluated for each sensor. And this way you could select a configuration field. There's another topic about configuration fields and a video, but basically this allows you to add hundreds of sensors to the same product, and this rule or condition scenario you set up works for all sensors across your product. That's it. Thanks for watching and stay tuned.